The Titanic was 4 stories wide. The Titanic was made in England. The Titanic was supposedly the best ship ever. And it was, at that point. The Titanic was going to set sail from England to America in April 10th. The Titanic was going to America, New York. Lots of the people were riding for fun, but lots of them weren't. They were riding to find a better job and a better place to live in America. Tickets cost more than a sailor's money that he'd ever get just working on the Titanic. They were so expensive. The poor people were not at first class. They were at the third or fourth class. So they were put way down in the down behind, low down on the ship. Many people thought, it wasn't people thought, everyone knew that the Titanic was going to be the unsinkable. That's what people used to call it. But that wasn't true. So our story begins on April 10th in London. Everyone was ready to set sail. Lots of the people, as I said, were traveling for fun, so they brought all their dogs and stuff like that. So those were the rich people. The poor people, they weren't as fortunate. So, the Titanic was setting sail, and everyone knew that it was the unsinkable. So no one had any worries. So they didn't prepare enough life jackets and lifeboats for the people to travel in. That's not a good thing. And back then, none of the ships had turned their radios on at night because no one thought that they needed them. So, it was April 15th, and the Titanic was riding through the cold coasts of Canada, Halifax. And then the lookout spotted an iceberg. So he called to the captain, "Captain, there's an iceberg ahead of us. Turn the other way." But before the captain could turn, they hit the iceberg. The captain went down to see if the Titanic was hit. And then that's when the sad news hit. The Titanic was sinking. But why would it go to an enormous ship? None of the passengers thought that the Titanic would sink. No one believed them when the captain told them that the Titanic was sinking and to get their life jackets on. It was only 2 o'clock in the morning when the Titanic began to sink. 2:10 to be exact, when the Titanic began to sink. Everyone thought that it was just for fun. Some people were in their underwear, but lots of them were in gowns because they'd just been partying. The people that were in the third or fourth class, in the bottom, were stuck in the Titanic because no one was there to direct them and because they could get lost in the big ship. It was huge. So all they could do was sit, wait, and hope. That's how many of the people lost their lives. The Titanic tried to make contact with a ship that was pretty close. But that ship had the radio turned off. The Titanic tried to do fireworks into the sky, but the people on board the other ship just thought that they were partying. They didn't know that it was a sign for help. But it was. And no one knew that, so they couldn't help them. Many people died during the Titanic's tragical sinking. No one would think that was the ship that was supposed to be the unsinkable. But no, it wasn't. It sunk the very first time that it was set on water. Many years later, a man named Robert was curious about the Titanic. Everyone was. This was many years after the Titanic sunk. So he was like, well, why can't the Titanic, because all of this stuff happened in 1912. And so, this was probably 1925 that Robert was really curious about the Titanic. So he and some other scientists made a robot that would go down deep, and they would just stay up on the lifeboat, on the boat, and just wait to see and look at the cameras to see if the robot had found anything. The robot was diving many times, but no luck for a long time, until one day the robot went deep where it's never been before, and the Titanic was there. Back on board, everyone was screaming and yelling and saying, "Woohoo! We found the Titanic!" It was a beautiful ship. Robert could see that it was a beautiful ship, even after it was crumbled and even though it sank. He could see wine bottles, the propeller, the steering wheel, gowns, beds, and some of the sad things were that he saw little babies' shoes. They saw lots of things, but that was pretty sad for Robert. But that didn't matter. He found the Titanic. He left a note saying that whoever found the Titanic would let it rest in peace, because he didn't want treasure hunters grabbing aboard the ships, because there was a lot of rich people and they wanted the stuff so they could sell and make money. No, he wrote a note saying, "Please don't leave this ship alone. Let it lie in peace." So the Titanic, to this day, is still down there. Well, parts of it are in the Halifax Museum, which I've been to, and you could see a bunch of stuff. You can see shoes that babies used to wear, gowns, bottles, wine, all sorts of things. And the captain, the trusty captain, went down with the ship, because he was not letting go of the ship, because until every last man was off, and not everyone was off, so he wouldn't leave his ship. He was a great captain. To this day, last year we were celebrating the Titanic's 100th birthday, because all of these events happened in 1912 when the Titanic sank on April 15th. And on April 15th, 2012, there was an ad in the newspaper saying celebrating the Titanic's 100th birthday. So I hope you'll go through this with me and understand how precious this ship really was. 9/11. 9/11 was caused by one man called Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was the terrorist. So he hacked into the pilot's seat, let the captains unconscious, and started to fly the plane. So since he knew nothing about the flying planes, he just let it be. So the planes hit one of the planes hit the first tower, the Twin Tower. Everyone was screaming, and lots of people were hurt and killed. A few minutes later, there's another plane hit the other Twin Tower. That went down too. Lots of people were hurt and killed. This is called the 9/11 attack because it happened September 11th. The man landing on the moon. The man landing on the moon was a man called Neil Armstrong, who was an American, and he went up to the moon and was the first man to set foot on the moon. He left an American flag and a note in place saying that he hopes the people will respect the moon and not destroy it, just like what I was explaining in the Titanic. But he was writing about how the moon was not made out of cheese. No, he wasn't writing about that. I just made that up. He was writing that he was the first man on the moon, and that was a good thing. And so many years, for so many people have traveled to the moon now. And a few months ago, they made their last trip to the moon forever. That's American. So because it costs a lot of money to go to the moon. And he wrote a note saying to write their names or something like that. So over the years, many people have written their names to say that they have been on the moon. Thanks for watching. I hope I did a good explanation.